Bruchim Habayim. We are continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on Daf Chaf Bet Amud Aleph, starting where the wide lines are, but 12 lines up. Today's Amud is being learned as a schut for Fashel Ma'av Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, that should have full recovery, Refuah Shelema Be'ezat Hashem, Amen. And this month's learnings that the community has been graciously dedicated by the Shea family, by Kohen family, and Dayan families. The ultimate schut for all of the mishpachot Be'ezat Hashem, Amen. So we started an endeavor in the Gemara, saying how many malkuts can you get all at once, because you are transgressing different isurim with one act. So we had the braita that the Gemara brought on Chaf Aleph Amud Bet, that you could have yesh choresh telem echad v'chayav alav mishum shemona lavin. You could have a person that plows one row in his land, and he becomes chayav for 8 different liabilities of different isurim. And now the Gemara challenged it multiple ways. Why can't you have more than 8? Hazoreh b'nachal etan. If you are plowing in nachal etan where the egla arufa had to be decapitated, that also will be another isur. You can't plow in nachal etan. It says lo yizareh. And each one of these things, the Gemara brought an azhara, a lav of where we see in the Chumash that this is asur. Right? Correct. The Rab Chanina asked, so you could also ask, if mocheket Hashem, imagine if you have the name of Hashem written on the ground, or on a thing that's attached to the ground. By plowing, you're destroying the name. It says lo ta'asun ken la'Hashem elokechem, right? You're supposed to have kavod for Shem Hashem. This becomes actually a lot of question in digital writing of name of Hashem. Is that considered deleting, not deleting? You have to be careful, or maybe not as much. But these are questions. Deleting, let's say, a Yud Kei Vav Kei that has been tattooed on someone's hand. A lot of Israelis, they have a tattoo of Yud Kei Vav Kei on their hands. But then it creates a lot of issues of going to the bathroom and taking showers and so on and so forth when it's exposed to erva. So how do you deal with that, right? You have multiple questions. Even a lot of the Sfaradim, they have traditional bechers, the kos shel kiddush, right? The kiddush cup that they have out of silver. On the top layer, on the top is a row that writes the bracha of Borei Priya Gefen, right? It says Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Borei Priya Gefen. It's engraved inside, outside the cup. And the question that also is, can you put your lips on that and drink from it? Is that considered disrespectful? So Shulchan Aruch seems to say in Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah that you cannot do that, actually. So that a question should be asked from your local Moreh Hora'ah, how to go about using those cups and so on. Again, this comes into the halachot of respecting the name of Hashem and so on. So if you have, again, that's just a tangent, but if you have Shem Hashem and through plowing you're destroying it, that would be another thing. And Mara says, even if you have a baheret, for instance, and you're going to be cutting that through plowing, that's going to be another issue, right? Because there's that Ishamer B'neka Asarat. And Abaye says, once you add it, how about if you had a part of Beit HaMikdash over there, which you did something that's not supposed to be done. For instance, Choshen HaMishpat, the chest plate of Kohen Gadol, has to always be attached and together with a ephod. If you move it, it says Lo Yizacha Choshen Me'ala ephod. That's a problem. So if that happened during the course of the same thing you're doing, it will be an issue. Or if you have, let's say, one of the Badei Aaron, right? The Aaron was carried by poles. And unlike other vessels of the Beit HaMikdash, that when you carried them and you were done with carrying them, you would take the poles out. By Aaron, it says, Lo yasuru mimenu. They can never be taken away from the Aaron, right? So the Sifrei Hashkafa, they write the reason that the Aaron is like that because the Talmidei Hachamim have to always be attached. People have to always be attached to the Talmidei Hachamim. The community that supports the Talmidei Hachamim, that carries the schools and yeshivot, and that has to always be with it. It's not that, okay, you give a little support here and then you come back next Yom Kippur, right? It has to be an attachment and a real connection between the community and the teachers of the community. But be as it may, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. They can't take the badim out. So imagine if you took the badim out and you use them in your maharesha, in your plow. Every second that you're using the maharesha, you're also transgressing the avera of lo yasuru mimenu. Fine. Or if your plow is made out of aseh asherah, right? Out of a worshipped avodah zarah tree. So every moment that you're using them, if you use them for plowing, you're also transgressing the isur of lo yidbak biyadcha meuma min hacherem. So says the Gemara, you could also say that it was made out of, or through plowing, you're cutting trees, smaller trees of fruit trees. That's isur bal tashchit. As you're plowing, you uproot one of those trees, and that would be transgression as well, because mimenu tochal ve'oto lo tichrot. Fine. The Gemara says, finally, and this is something we're going to deal with right now, that if a person said, I am not going to plow on Yom Tov, so that's isur of neder. Now, when you plow on Yom Tov right now, one isur should be the fact that you actually plowed on Yom Tov, which is an isur. And second should be isur of nedarim. You made a neder not to do it, and you did it. You were over on your neder. You transgressed your oath. So says the Gemara, no, that's not good. Why? Because any mitzvah that the Torah obligates you, the Rabbanan may be different, but any mitzvah that the Torah obligates you, it's as if you took an oath already by Har Sinai to accept it and to do it. So you can't make another oath on the already existing oath. The Gemara says, no, you can. If you study Masechet Nedarim, you realize that if you have Isur Kolel, that means you accept upon yourself something that is mutar up until now, but kolel in it, you include in it something that would have been anyways asur. Now that neder is chal, takes effect. For instance, in weekday you could plow, no problem, but you could make a neder or take an oath that you're not going to plow during the week. You could do that. The neder would take effect. So if you say, I swear, or I make a neder that I'm not going to plow on weekdays. So that's a neder, that's the oraita. Now if you plow on weekdays, you transgress the oraita, right? How about if you say, I'm not going to plow on weekdays and also on Yom Tov? Now, your neder is chal even on Yom Tov. Now if you plow on Yom Tov, you get two sets of lashes. One for plowing on Yom Tov, and one for plowing when you had made a neder not to plow. So the Gemara says, I could do it. That's Isur Kolel. We call that Isur Kolel. You include it in other things, and that will be considered an Isur. So says the Gemara, why don't you say it? Gemara says, because midi de'ite b'she'ela lo katani. Because something that is mentioned in the Braita should be something that you're stuck with. When you make a neder, if you regret making a neder, you could always go to the Hacham and provided certain elements of hatara, you could make hatara nedarim. So if you made a neder or shvuah that you're not going to plow, it's still way back. You're not stuck with it. You could make hatarat nedarim, and therefore we don't say that as the count of how many isurim you're going to be over. But then the Gemara says, wait a second. Vehare hekdesh bebechor, vehare nazir benazir. It's the Gemara says hekdesh also if you're makdish something, right? So this should be hekdesh. Can you retract that and make a hatara? Yeah, you can. But we still counted. In the original 8 that we counted was what? That the behema, 2 of 8 was that the behema, the shor and the chamor were hekdesh. Right? That's 2 of the 8 isurim. That also you could nullify. You could nullify the hekdesh. The Gemara says no. We're talking about bechor. Bechor is the only hekdesh that is born kadosh. There's nothing to do about it. You did not create. When you create the kedusha, the hekdesh, you could also take it away. But if it's born with kedusha, there's nothing to do about it. So therefore, if you remember when we did the top of Chafar Amud Bet, when we said it's hekdesh, we mentioned already ahead of the time that this is talking about bechor. This is where we're coming from, right? Mara says, Nazir. How about Nazir? Nazir is also a neder. So yesterday we spoke about the fact that, you could do atarat nedarim on Nazir. So Gemara says, no, we're talking about Nazir Shimshon. Someone who is Nazir Shimshon. Now Rivan over here on the side, he says Nazir Shimshon, it's a very strange Rivan. He says we're talking about the case that was exactly like Shimshon. What was the story of Shimshon? His father Manoach and his mother were approached by a malach, and the malach told them, you're going to have a child who from the moment of birth and even before, during your pregnancy, cannot even by extension consume anything of wine or grapes. That means you, the mother, from the moment of conception should be a Nazir, because this person is Nazir Olam, is forever going to be Nazir already from conception. So Nazir Shimshon, the Gemara says, does not have Hatara. Now how do we understand this? Now, first of all, Rivan says that we're talking about the case that a malach came to you and said that this baby is going to be a Nazir. Why do you have to say such a thing? What is pushing the Rivan to create such a obscure scenario? When was the last time your friend was approached by a malach that their child is going to be a Nazir, right? Like, that's like a once in a history type of situation, right? So it says, let's understand this, by the way. The Gemara says Nazir Shimshon doesn't have Hatara, right? And that's why we're saying it. Now, when in Elul, so Rosh Hashanah is around the corner, and we're going to have Erev Rosh Hashanah, Hatarat Nedarim. In the text of Hatarat Nedarim, what do we say? Anything that we accepted upon ourselves, any neder, any kunam, any isur, ve'afilu, anyone remembers this? Afilu nezirut shimshon. Well, wait a second. The Gemara says like black on white that nezirut shimshon doesn't have hatara. How in the world do you stand at Erev Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and you say afilu nezirut shimshon? So this, without getting into further discussion, this becomes a very geschmack discussion actually, because there are a lot of things that we say in Hatarat Nedarim that needs yeshuv, right? For instance, you say any minhag tov that we did, how many times? 3 times. You don't need to do 3 times to create a neder. If I decide, right? If I say I'm going to do daf yomi, right? I'm going to do daf yomi, and then tomorrow morning I show up at daf yomi or do it by myself, that is a full-fledged neder. Once. If you decide, you say, I am going to from now on do daf yomi, you do it once, neder, gamur. You don't need 3 times. So what's this 3-time business, right? So 3 times you need for something that you didn't say and you didn't decide. He just ended up doing Daf Yomi because the rabbi is amazing. So he started doing Daf Yomi. He had no thoughts that I'm going to continue, not continue. Didn't say anything, nothing. You show up 3 times, you do something in Minhag Tov without deciding that forever I'm going to do this, without saying a neder. Just do something in Minhag Tov 3 times, it becomes neder. Right? That's what the 3 times comes from. Right? So you have to, there are a lot of things there. For instance, in that nusach we say, anything we're going to say in future is going to be beli neder. Does that work? Right? We say it in Kol Nidrei also, Leil Yom Kippur, right? So there are a lot of things that have to be, but we take all of them seriously because this is a nusach that's been, it's a nusach kadmon. So there are those who want to say, that's the pshat in Rivan. That's the pshat in Rivan, because Rivan holds that Nezirut, if you say, there are several different types of becoming Nazir. If you say, I want to be Nazir like Shimshon, right? The Malach didn't show up or anything. You just said, I'm going to be Nazir like Shimshon. So that, Nezirut Shimshon, you accepted upon yourself. Rivan says, that has Hatara. Why doesn't it have Hatara? It has Hatara. But if you have something that is from outside imposed, then the Malach came, this is not initiated by you. It's like Kedushat Bechor, right? Just like by Bechor, Min HaShamayim, this animal is born Kadosh. So if you have a boy that is born a Nazir, just like Shimshon, that what does not have Hatara. But if you impose it upon yourself, it does have Hatara. That's a way to understand the Rivan, but again, it's certainly not the simple understanding of the Gemara. So says the Gemara. So Nazir Shimshon, the Gemara says, wait a second, you have a problem over here, because Nazir Shimshon has no problem of making himself Tameh. Shimshon killed thousands of people. Nazir Shimshon is the only Nazir, all of the Nazirim, they have a problem of tumah. You cannot touch corpse. You cannot come into an ohel. Nazir has to. You know what happens, by the way, if by mistake, suddenly, you encounter a corpse as a Nazir, your whole Nazirut turns off, and you have to restart over again, right? Can't do it. But Nazir Shimshon is the only Nazir that doesn't have an issue of tumat mit. You could come in contact. So the whole thing that you're trying to do is accomplish that he's going to get lashes because he was a Nazir and he was in Bet Kevarot. Nazir Shimshon could be in Bet Kevarot, no problem. Says the Gemara, Elaha isur kolel. We have to retract this and say that this Tana does not hold of isur kolel. Remember how we started 2 minutes ago, that isur kolel is when you say shvuah, you say an additional thing, and that is going to create a isur that is there, even though that you were mushba ve'omid. So it says this Tana doesn't hold of that. So therefore, you don't have this issue altogether. So says the Gemara, Amar Hoshaya, Hamarbiya Shol Psulei Hamukdashim Lokeach Shenayim. Says the Gemara, what happens if you have a crossbreed, but not different animals? You have 2 cows, you have a cow, you have an ox, but one of them, either the female or the male, is hekdesh, is an animal that the other one is not, it's chulin, nothing, right? But now they're having a child together. What happens? What happens with that? Is that a problem? Or is that not a problem? What is this child? Is it Hekdesh? Is it not Hekdesh? So says the Gemara, Hamarbiya shor psulei hamukdashim loke shenayim. You have 2 issues over here. One is the issue of using the Hekadesh, but the second issue is that you are over on kilayim, right? Usually kilayim is, you have 2 different animals that you breed together, and that will become kilayim. But over here, says the Gemara, even with one of them being hekdesh, Rav Hoshaya says that you will be over on the same isur of kilayim. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Hamanhig b'shor psulei hamukdashim, loke share guf echad hu, v'asao hakatuv kishne gufim. Now, the same would be that if you are working this, plowing with this cow that's psulei mukdashim, would also be getting lashes, absorbing lashes, because it's, even though that is guf echad, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has presented it to us as two different gufim. The language of Rivan over here is va'afilu manhigo bifnei atzmo, even though that you are only using one animal. It's not that you have shor v'chamor, you have ox and donkey. It's one animal you're using for plow. Says the Rivan, because it is chulin ve'kochim mixed, because the father was a chulin, the mother was kochim, or vice versa, ve'chayav mishum kilayim decharisha. That is considered that you are plowing with a crossbreed of an animal, deu atzmo kilayim, because the animal itself is kilayim. In other words, Rav Hoshaya is mechadesh that when the Torah says lo tacharosh b'shor u'b'chamor yachtav, do not plow with a crossbreed of shor v'chamor, of ox and donkey together, it doesn't have to be two animals. If you create a crossbreed of even the same type of animal, but two animals who were not allowed to be breeded together, right? Now, usually what's not allowed to be breeded together is two different types of animals, a donkey and an ox. But if I find a different type of a prohibition against breeding, for instance, two cows, an ox and a cow, but one of them is muktashin, right, hekdesh, you cannot breed it also. It's isur doraita. You cannot do it. If you did it, the baby is going to be a crossbreed, quote unquote. Even though that's a full-fledged 100% cow DNA, half of his DNA is hekdesh, half of it is not. It's a crossbreed, and therefore that would be asur. Says the Rivan, she'asaan hakatuv shnei gufin. The pasuk deals with it as two different animals. Ve'lo shamati raya menalan dechulin v'kodashim kilayim. Says, I don't know where the raya is that we consider these two different types of animals, but lemaaseh, that's the conclusion of our Gemara. Next Mishnah, we're going to actually come to the $1 million question everyone has been asking. When are we speaking about the 39 versus 40 malkuts? Why is it that the Torah says arba'im yakenu and we only give 39? That's going to be our Mishnah. Kama malkinoto arba'im chaser achat. We have to speak about why every time that you have 40, one becomes less. Now, just to end the shiur with something very interesting, a question to think about. Every time we have 40, it becomes one less, right? It says 40 times you have to give him lashes. It becomes how many? 39. How many melachot of Shabbat do you have? Arba'im chaser achat. 40 minus 1. Why not just 39? And why 39? Why not 40, right? It's elements of creation are 4, of course, and 10 dimensions, the sphirot, whatever we want to say, 10 times 40. And lo ta'aseh kol melacha, it should be 40. Why 39? Where else do you find 40? How many years did they have to get punished? 40. How many years did they die? Well, last year they didn't die. It was arba'im haser achad again, right? It's you can't miss that this is something there that consistently happens. So you have to understand why 49, it's 39, which is 40 minus 1, is something that we're going to discuss, Be'ezrat Hashem, hashkafically, and of course that will segue into this fantastic Mishnah, speaking about the number of lashes and where you hit, and all of that, which will, Be'ezrat Hashem, continue in the days to come.